Thank you, Mr. Mercier, for your testimony. The chair will now recognize members for 5 minutes for questions, and we're going to begin by recognizing the vice chair of the subcommittee, the gentleman from American Samoa, Ms. Radewagen, for 5 minutes. Ms. Radewagen.
Talofa lava. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member. I want to thank also the panel for being here today. My question is for Mr. Mercier. I have a couple of them. When tribes bring concerns about historic claims to the Bureau, what role does BIA typically play in working with tribes and Congress on possible solutions?
Yes, thank you for the question, Congresswoman. The Bureau is over 200 years old, so we actually have quite a bit of historical record. So we often will work with tribes and our American Indian Record Repository to develop some of the historical facts regarding a potential claim. We also provide quite a bit of technical assistance through our solicitor's office at the Department of Interior to assist with any potential development. But we often defer as well, in this case, to the Department of Justice, and I would defer to them for further technical questions there.
So, Mr. Mercier, if H.R. 7065 is enacted, how will the department work alongside the Seneca Nation to fulfill law enforcement needs on the nation's territory?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. So the BIA, we often provide technical assistance to tribal nations that have worked with states to retrocede jurisdiction. Public Law 280 is a common example that we have across the country. And so I would imagine we would do something similar here were this law to pass. But again, I would defer to the Department of Justice. They have lots of equities in this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, for 5 minutes. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Thank you so very much, Director Mercier, for your testimony. And I didn't hear really any concerns about any of the major three bills in your testimony, which I think is good. But you know, the bill we have with regards to the Seneca Nation deals with tribal law enforcement. And I believe it is really important that we allow the Seneca Nation to exercise the jurisdiction it can as other tribes across the nation are able to, but also that the BIA provide its support on those areas where jurisdiction is limited to enforcement by the BIA law enforcement, you know, with the FBI and others helping. You know, across Indian country, we know there aren't enough resources put into law enforcement. And are you familiar with the Bureau of Indian Affairs Office of Justice Services report from 2021 that set out what the BIA public safety funding levels were at? Are you aware of that report?
Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, yes, I am. The Office of Justice Services reports to me, and I believe that's the part of the Tribal Law and Order Act annual report that you're referring to.
Right, and it was funded at only 13% of need. 13% of need. And so we clearly need to increase the number of boots on the ground and, you know, law enforcement officers in those cars because these reservations can be very big. Do you know what the need is now for law enforcement personnel at the BIA? This was 2021.
Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, if I'm understanding your question correctly, do I know how many positions we need to fill?
Not need to fill that are open, but need to fund.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but again, I would refer back to the report. It probably provides some of that data.
So basically, we haven't made enough improvement. Now, we know that the Biden administration did increase funding for the BIA and increased funding for law enforcement. But what I'd ask today is, are you recommending for the president's budget that we increase the funding for law enforcement in Indian country?
Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, I cannot speak to the president's budget. It's currently being developed and will be released in the coming weeks. I can point to the recent minibus and the slight increase that we did receive in Office of Justice Services in January of this year.
Yeah, and that was Congress. I mean, Congress made a decision, and I'm very grateful to the Appropriations Chair and Ranking Member and their cardinals and their ranking members for recognizing that the proposed cuts from the administration were not feasible. But since you are part of the administration, and I believe care deeply about these issues, I hope that you will go to bat and encourage that the president's budget reflects that need and encourage them to ask for more money for law enforcement, because the Seneca Nation needs it, the Indian Pueblos in New Mexico need it, we need it everywhere in Indian country. Do you commit to trying to at least push for that?
Ranking Member Leger Fernandez, law enforcement and public safety is definitely one of the top priorities of the current administration and something that we're very much focused on. And so we will be happy to pass that sentiment along that you're expressing here today.
Thank you, Mr. Mercier. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McDowell, for 5 minutes. Mr. McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for testifying before us today. Today, we're discussing a serious public safety issue that affects not only Western New York, but our entire country. Criminal organizations are exploiting a jurisdictional gap on tribal lands to traffic drugs, to move human beings, and to import deadly fentanyl into American communities. Tribal communities deserve the same level of safety and protection as any other American community. And criminal networks have used remote stretches of our northern border and tribal lands as transit points to avoid detection and prosecution. And we have to equip law enforcement with the personnel, the training, and the federal partnerships that they need to stop traffickers in their tracks. That means that we need better coordination with Customs and Border Protection, the DEA, and federal prosecutors. We have to close these jurisdictional loopholes, and I want to applaud my colleague from New York for bringing this legislation because we have to stop this because it creates confusion over who can arrest, who can charge, and who can convict. And supporting stronger policing on tribal lands is not anti-tribal. It is pro-safety, it's pro-sovereignty, and it's pro-community. And when we allow tribal authorities to ensure seamless cooperation with state and federal partners, we not only protect Native families first and foremost, but we also protect the broader region from becoming a pipeline for fentanyl and human trafficking as well. And so the American people expect secure borders. They expect equal application of the law and safe neighborhoods, and that includes the northern border and it includes tribal lands. Something I want to touch on briefly, on November 17th of last year, law enforcement seized more than 37,000 fentanyl pills on the Pueblo Reservation. And ironically, they're here today. But I want this to sink in. That's roughly 8 pounds of fentanyl, or 3.6 kilograms, which is enough to kill everyone in the Pueblo tribe 18 times. I want to commend you and Assistant Secretary Kirkland, Secretary Burgum, for what you're doing to stop this, because you are legitimately saving lives. So thank you. But the question I want to try to answer today is, why does this matter to the people of North Carolina's 6th District? Because we're talking about a tribe in New York, and it's reasonable for my constituents to wonder, why does this matter to us? And so, Mr. Mercier, I hope that you will help me to answer that question with the remaining time that I have. We have heard that drug traffickers specifically target areas where jurisdiction is fuzzy or overlapping. Would you agree that by streamlining authority back to a federal tribal model, we're effectively removing the jurisdictional shield that these criminals are currently hiding behind?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I would agree that clarity around this jurisdictional issues is paramount to effective law enforcement and public safety, yes.
So we know that fentanyl is now a leading cause of overdose deaths in many parts of the country. From your perspective, how is fentanyl specifically impacting families within and around the Seneca Nation of Indians, and what does that tell us about the urgency of strengthening interdiction efforts along the northern border?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I can't speak to the specifics of the Seneca Nation. I've only been in this job for about 18 months, but I was, prior to that, about 7 years in the Portland area office, and we had similar situations and witnessed that as well. And what we found is that working collaboratively with the state, having MOUs, having clarity around those jurisdictions was an effective tool. We've also stood up a division of drug enforcement that is working closely with the Department of Justice, U.S. Marshals, FBI, et cetera, to combat these criminal elements on reservations.
Does the passage of this law help us to stop drug traffickers from bringing fentanyl and other deadly drugs into our country?
Congressman, honestly, I can't speak to whether that will be the case. I think it's better, that question would be better deferred to the Department of Justice and some of the equities that they have with the bill.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from New Mexico, Ms. Stansbury, for 5 minutes. Ms. Stansbury.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, Director, for being here today. I know we haven't had much of an opportunity to interact, but I greatly appreciate anyone who steps up for this role. Being the director of BIA is not an easy job, as you are trying to balance the needs, demands, and requirements of so many sovereign nations. And so I appreciate anyone who steps into that role. And also, you and I have something in common. I see from your bio that you also did a Udall Foundation internship, and so go Udall Foundation. So great to have you here today. I just want to say thank you to you and to the department and to Interior for supporting this bill. I think our opening statement made clear what an important property the Pueblo Cultural Center is. But one of the aspects of it that I did want to emphasize today is I know that Department of Interior is looking at potential restructuring of various bureaus and departments. And so I really have two asks. One is our tribal leaders in New Mexico have made very clear that they would like direct government-to-government consultation on any kind of restructuring that is not, sending low-level, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but staff who don't have decision-making authority to a big group meeting. They are asking for direct nation-to-nation consultation from high-level decision makers, and there is a feeling that that has not been adequately done in potential restructuring proposals, whether it's BIA or BIE. And then the second is that, as you're probably well aware, I know you're a former regional director from the Northwest region, also not an easy job. This property is home both to BIA and BIE's regional office, as well as OST. They are a great tenant of this property, and it's one of the few regional offices that's tribally owned and controlled, where they get to be the landlord of BIA, which I think is a great historical turn of events. And so I would ask for your commitment to try to help us continue that use of that property, because I think it's a good arrangement, and I know that for the BIA staff, it's a really nice facility for them to have. So I know you are bound as an administration official to answer as you need to, but can I have your commitment today that you will help support those efforts?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Representative Stansbury. I commit to bring it back to our leadership at the department and to follow up with you.
Wonderful. And I'll just mention, I have a number of tribal bills that I'm running in cooperation with our tribal nations, Many of them do not pertain to Department of Interior, and so I won't ask you in depth. But certainly, I just want to put on your radar that we have several tribal housing bills that we're running through HUD that are really important, and I hope the administration can support them. Many of our tribes are now in a situation where, because of the income requirements for individual members, it's difficult to access HUD funding to build tribal housing. And so we've been working with tribes across the country to create a new category at HUD for middle-income tribes to be able to build housing. So I know you can't speak for another agency, but I did want to put that on your radar today and ask for the administration's support. We also have a bill through Indian Health Service to help build the pipeline for health providers to serve at IHS. I know the IHS director is going to be in New Mexico next week at Santa Ana Pueblo, and I don't know if you've had the opportunity to visit Albuquerque and visit our communities, but we would love to invite you. Please know you're always welcome. I can't speak for our tribes, but I'm sure that we could find some folks that would love to host you, and so please come to New Mexico. And the final piece is we have a number of pieces of legislation that we're working on that are about repatriation of BLM lands in and around the Albuquerque area and then the middle Rio Grande. And we will be reintroducing a bill soon that we're working on with San Felipe and Santa Ana Pueblo to repatriate some very important ancestral lands that are currently held by BLM. The BLM regional office has worked with us for many years on this, so I hope that we can ask for your support to bring that into trust and transfer it to the tribe. So thank you, and with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole, for 5 minutes. Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Director. Thank you for being with us here today, and frankly, thanks for all you do for all of Indian country. I've just got three pretty quick, simple questions. Is it correct to say, Mr. Director, that H.R. 2827 only involves tribes that have legitimate claim under the Treaty of Grouseland to this land in Illinois and no other tribes?
Thank you, Chairman Cole. And let me preface by saying I'm not an attorney, but my reading of the bill is it is limited to just the Miami tribe of Oklahoma.
Okay, and would it be fair to say that if another tribe wants to claim they have a different claim to the land, they could seek legislation to be introduced?
Thank you, Chairman Cole. It really would depend on the facts of the case. Every tribe in my career I've learned is very unique and has a unique history. So it's difficult for me to opine on that, but I will say Congress does have exclusive plenary authority over Indian lands and such claims.
That sort of leads me to the next one, which I think be helpful to get your view on. And can you provide a brief explanation of why Congress is the only entity that can extinguish this land claim? There really aren't any other avenues.
Thank you, Congressman Cole. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to get too far over my skis, but my understanding that it's largely tied back to Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, the Indian Commerce Clause, and the Marshall Trilogy, and lots of Supreme Court precedent that has clearly defined Congress as the exclusive plenary authority over Indian lands and claims.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I want you to know that my esteem for you was already high, but every time you said I am not an attorney, it just got a little bit higher. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor to testify before you, sir. Thank you.
Objection. Thank you. The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes the gentleman from the state of Arizona, Ms. Grijalva, for 5 minutes. Ms. Grijalva.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. In his confirmation hearing, Assistant Secretary Kirkland stated that he would uphold the federal trust responsibilities to support the economic self-sufficiency of tribal communities across Indian country. Ms. Fragua's testimony will highlight that, every prior transfer of the former Albuquerque Indian School property has led to measurable economic development, job creation, and cultural preservation. Director, would you agree that HR 6162 aligns with those goals, given that it would enable the 19 pueblos to expand the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center's work and economic success?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Yes, we from our experience, we found that tribal consolidation of tribal lands provides economic development, cultural development opportunities. It's been proven in the past.
So once H.R. 6162 is enacted, how will the BIA work with the GSA to ensure that the transfer of these parcels is timely and efficient?
So because this would be an act of Congress, it would be a mandatory acquisition, so we would be reaching out immediately with them upon passage and signature by the president to initiate that. I believe there's some tenants that would need to make sure that we take care of and vacate the premises, so we would work closely with them to ensure that we do that in a timely manner.
And what would that look like as far as timely manner?
Well, it's up to GSA, and I don't want to speak up to them about the current tenants, how they would handle that. So it's difficult for me to speak on behalf of GSA. But once the lands have been vacated and we've completed all the various requirements we have for an acquisition, which includes a site assessment, a title review, et cetera, we would then take the land into trust. Any
estimate on number of months? Years?
It really depends. I don't want to give you a number because I just don't have all the facts, and it depends on GSA.
Yeah, as being newer to this committee, I just always want to have an idea of the timeline that we're looking at. All right, thank you so much. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. At this time, the chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. Mr. Mercier, I have a question about Mr. Langworthy's bill, H.R. 7065, with respect to the Seneca Nation. What is BIA's current role in law enforcement activities on Seneca Nation territory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I believe because of the Section 232, similar to Public Law 280, we have a fairly limited role. We don't provide direct services. I don't believe we have a law enforcement contract with the tribe, but I'm sure we provide technical assistance where we are able. And so I would define it fairly limited at this point.
So it's circumscribed?
Yep.
Significantly?
I don't have the details of how in-depth our team has been engaged with the Seneca Nation. I would defer to the chairman here on the next panel.
Okay. And how does the BIA work with the Seneca Nation and local law enforcement in addressing that drug trafficking-related crime, or is it limited, as you testified just a moment ago?
Well, there we do have a dedicated unit, our Division of Drug Enforcement, that does help across Indian country. So I don't have the specifics with me of what we may have done with the Seneca Nation in the past, but I would be happy to follow up with some of those efforts to better define that.
Okay. But as you sit here right now, there's nothing that's coming to mind specifically with respect to the Seneca Nation?
It does not, no.
Okay. Your testimony notes that the Department of Interior defers to the DOJ on certain aspects of this bill. From Interior's perspective, what factors should Congress be thinking about or considering in evaluating whether removing New York's concurrent jurisdiction strengthens law enforcement coordination?
Yeah, Chairman, it's a great question. And what I can do is just speak from my experience in the Northwest, where we did have a number of tribes work closely with the state of Washington or state of Oregon to actually retrocede that jurisdiction. And it's very important to have that alignment with the state because there's often MOUs that are entered in there for cost deputization to ensure that if a criminal element is passing one border into another, that there's not any disruption there. So that kind of coordination with the state and local law enforcement is really critical for this to be a successful endeavor. So that's probably what we would advise the committee is to work closely, one, with the Department of Justice. They have many more equities here than we do. And with the state of New York.
Great, thank you. Your testimony also highlights the importance of balancing tribal sovereignty, legal clarity, and administrative feasibility. When you look at the three bills that are being discussed at this hearing this morning, do you believe that they strike that balance appropriately?
That's a great question, Mr. Chairman. I think it's fair to say that we would like to continue conversations on two of the bills. I think our support for the second bill is evident in my testimony, but we would like to continue conversations on the other two.
On 2827 and 7065?
Correct.
Okay, great. Look forward to that continued discussion. With that, I will yield the rest of my time back. And Mr. Mercier, I want to thank you for your valuable testimony and my colleagues for their questions. The members of the committee, Mr. Mercier, may have some additional questions for you, and we would ask that you respond to those in writing. And at this time, I would ask the clerk to please reset the table for our second panel.